In a world where everyone is always running behind the latest and greatest, I'm going to talk about this tiny little crop sensor camera, which is the best selling camera in the world, at least in US or in Japan. That's where I come from. This is a perfect beginner camera for your filmmaking and content creation journey. This is the Sony ZV-E10. It's a cheap, reliable, entry-level camera that gets the job done. Though it has some flaws in it, I'm gonna talk about them in the later part of the video, so make sure you will watch the video till the end. Let's talk about why ZV-E10 is the best budget camera and why you should get this camera in 2024. Before buying a new camera, I look for certain aspects. No, it's not about having the biggest sensor or being able to record open gate, though those are some nice features to have, but you don't absolutely need them unless you have a specialized job. For most of us, those features don't matter as much. I use this camera in some of my videos in this channel and can achieve almost the same result as my Sony FX3. The aspects I look for are: can it record 4K? Does it have a record limit? How good the battery life is? Can it shoot log? Or how affordable the lenses are, because trust me, lenses are way more important than the camera body. This camera has a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor, same sensor as the Sony 6000 series like a6100 or a6400. That's a lot of megapixels. Like my Sony FX3 has only 12 megapixels. The Sony marketed it as a vlogging camera, but you can use this as a photo camera as well, but it doesn't have a viewfinder with it. You have to use the monitor. This camera can record 4K at 24 and 30 fps and Full HD in 60 and 120 fps, though 4K at 30 fps has a 1.2 times crop and 60 and 120 fps has a 1.14 times crop, which is same as the Sony 6000 series. So sensor wise, you can say this is the same camera as Sony a6400, but this camera has many features that surpasses those old cameras. Speaking of features, this camera has a flip out screen, which sounds like a small thing, but I cannot stress enough how important it is to have a flip out screen when you are in front of the camera or shooting alone. In 2024, flip out screen is a must for any camera. This camera has no record limit, which is a very big deal to shoot talking head videos like this. I don't know any camera at this price point which has this no record limit settings. This camera can record S-Log 2 and S-Log 3, so you can color grade your footage with that extra dynamic range, but it can only shoot in 8-bit, which is fine in my opinion because I don't expect 10-bit in this price point as well. It has 425 focus point with face tracking autofocus. You can also touch to focus as well. You know how good Sony cameras are in focusing subjects. I don't need to emphasize on that. It has a product showcase option. If you put any product in front of the lens, it will only focus on the product instead of your face. Without it, it looks like this. Very cool, right? It has a background defocus option. By pressing this button, it will blur your background and isolate you from the background, essentially switching it to the lens's lowest aperture. This camera doesn't have an in-body image stabilization. It has electrical image stabilization. It also records gyro data, so you can stabilize your footage later with Sony Catalyst Browse. The results are amazing. If you haven't tried Sony Catalyst Browse before, you should. That's an amazing free software from Sony. So Sony ZV-E10 has a E-mount, which means you can use any Sony mirrorless full frame lenses as well as APS-C lenses. APS-C lenses are way cheaper and more affordable. The best option for this camera is Sigma 16mm f1.4 or Sony 11mm f1.8. I personally use the 11mm, which is plenty wide. You can see I am holding it so close, but you can still see my full background, and I didn't even extended my full arm. So if I extend it, it's a great lens for vlogging. You can use this camera as a webcam very easily by connecting with a USB-C. It outputs 720p, but the quality is way better than any other webcams out there. You can combine it with lenses to get your background blur. It will give you a very professional look to your regular Zoom calls or streams. This camera is small. It's so small that you can fit it into your pockets or into your hoodies as a point and shoot camera. The interchangeable lens option make it an extremely versatile camera. This camera can fit into tight spaces very easily. Okay, enough good things. Now let's talk about the things I don't like about this camera. The first is the rolling shutter. This camera has an extremely bad rolling shutter. If you pan your camera from left to right very quickly, it will give you this jello effect. But honestly, it never bothers me at all because how often do you use your camera like this? Next is the battery life. The battery life of this camera is pretty bad, which is quite understandable as it uses the old tiny NPF W50 batteries. It will hardly give you 50 to 60 minutes of continuous shooting. You have to buy extra batteries or use the USB-C to charge and shoot at the same time. It will give you a way better runtime experience. And the last is the quality of the display. It's very poor. You cannot trust this screen for colors in my opinion, but it is not totally unusable. It is still usable and better than nothing, but I use an external monitors with this camera that solves my problem. So overall, Sony ZV-E10 is a small, compact and capable camera which has all the features you need as a content creator, and it only costs $700. You can easily get it in 500 used, and I recommend used if you are just starting. Spend the extra money on a good lens. Don't buy it with the kit lens. The kit lens is not good enough. Buy the Sigma 16mm or the Sony 11mm. You will not regret it. That's all for this video. If you like or learn anything from this video, hit that like button and consider subscribing. See you in the next video. Peace.
I'm a videographer and I'm on the verse, so when I shoot my shot, I don't miss. I'm gonna take the shot, take the shot, take the shot.